That thing, man. And
What's going on, my brother?
How's it going? Figured it
Hold
out.
on, let me put on the headphones. All right, can you hear me?
I got you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you too. Thank you for jumping
Nice.
on, man. How you doing today?
I am good. How about you guys?
I am doing well, man. Really doing well. Thank you for being a part of this, coming on and sharing your story with us and how you got to where you're going. So I'm going to take a little minute and introduce you. Today we got Zach Faber, right? This man has an amazing story. He's a personal trainer. This man has a journey that will blow your mind. So I'm going to hand it over to him. Let him introduce himself. So Zach, go ahead, tell people about where you're from and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Zach. I grew up in Orange County, California. And since then, I've been literally all over California. So I'm coming to you guys from sunny San Diego right now, which is, I mean, I'm looking outside. There's not a cloud in the sky, so it's nice to see. But yeah, I am happy to kind of just get into it and tell you about myself. Um, like I said, I grew up in Orange County. So growing up out there, it's like a very posh upper class area. And my dad was a struggling entrepreneur. So it was always interesting kind of growing up on the lesser end of an environment like that. But I really think that's kind of helped me to understand the importance of hard work and consistency and growing to be the best version of me possible, right? I think that's what we all can strive for. I know talking to you, Tony, last week, like hearing your story, I think there's so much symbiosis between people who go through struggles and wanting to be the best version of themselves. And that kind of, right, we talked about it working its way into personal training and health and fitness and helping others. And so I think everything in my life up until this point has kind of directed me in that direction. So yeah, growing up out there was difficult when you're you have a nice house, but it's the smallest house on the block. You have a nice car when you turn 16, but everybody's getting the new BMW, the new Mercedes. You just kind of feel like a step less than everybody else. And then and then in 2006, actually, my father was diagnosed with a form of blood cancer called non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And we struggled for about 6 years with his illness before he passed away. So that was pretty heavy. Him, being a young teenager and then having two younger siblings, and the breadwinner of the house was in a hospital for months on end because his treatment was pretty intensive chemo. And he ended up passing from something called graft versus host disease, which is like it's when you get a stem cell transplant. So it's really cool right now. There's a ton of research into this, but it's, stem cell transplants to help leukemia, lymphoma, sickle cell anemia, multiple myeloma. And they've cured over 100,000 people from it. So I implore anyone who's listening who hasn't had the chance, go check out Be the Match. Go check out the work they're doing to save people's lives. It's pretty incredible. But unfortunately, my dad was on the other side of that, so he got a stem cell transplant that didn't work, passed away, and then actually 5 days after he passed away, it was a stock market crash and housing crisis, and we were evicted from our home. So in the Jewish religion, you have to bury somebody within 2 to 5 days of them being passing. And so we were coordinating a funeral, selling everything in our home, and trying to find a new place to live. And it was a pretty big moment in my life, just because I had gone from, taking the lesser path, doing, drugs and not paying attention in school and not caring about life, to all of a sudden like being thrown into, the situation where you are everything. Yeah.
It's a whirlwind that no one really expects. It's like you've been snatched out of your comfort zone, and all of a sudden you've been tossed into this world of chaos where you're trying to figure out everything, trying to make sense of everything else, and you have very limited time to even catch your breath.
Totally. And I think, we talked about this, and from a men's perspective, right? Like, that is a point where you shut up, you shove down your feelings, and you have to keep going, right? You have to be the man of the house. Men don't cry, men don't have feelings. And those misconceptions start building up and up and up. And for me at that time, it was too much. I actually attempted suicide and was hospitalized. And I think that's ultimately what saved my life, was being at the program I was at and learning the coping skills, and the fact that men are humans. We cry, we feel, we're allowed to emote. And I think the beautiful part of life is, feeling into that spectrum of emotion and realizing like the depths of pain and loss can also be the depths of happiness. Once you've experienced one, that there's the counterbalance in life, right?
It's really hard to see it, though. It's really hard to see when you're going through it. And like I said, we talked about this before. And it's when you can't see it, it's a whole lot of stuff that that can get just misunderstood along the way. Especially being men, we want to fix everything, and when we don't, we end up destroying ourselves because of that sense of. I mean, and I can only speak from my perception when it comes down to this. And if you can relate to it, let me know. But it was the guilt, the shame. How did this happen again? Right? What do I do from here? And the only thing I could say to people was that I was okay when these things were going on. No one really knew, because no one really paid attention to me. I was just like, okay, well, so when people asked me, I was like, yeah, I'm okay, man. I'm okay. And deep down inside, I was like, my world is falling apart, right? It's like somebody's just taking a big old drill and just going through my whole top of my head down to the core of my feet.
Gosh.
And everything else is just empty. Right? Where did we go? What did we do? How do we find that courage to keep going?
Well, I think it's a two-way street there too, right? My brain went right to how others, like, it's such an uncomfortable situation for us, for you in the situation, but then think about others around you. Like, how do you react to someone who's dealing with multiple losses, who's dealing with that complex emotion that a lot of us like, and good for whoever, doesn't have to deal with that, right? Like, doesn't have to really go through that depth of deep emotion. So it's, I just remember at the funeral, like, I know exactly how you feel. I lost my dad when I was young. I know exactly. And it's like, that's such a common go-to, but there's no right words or right answers, and you will never know how somebody else feels, right? We're not capable of saying I know exactly how Tony feels, because there's just no way of equating feelings. So on top of the fact that it's all relative, it's honestly, it gave me a lot of patience for other people, like going through that and then learning how to communicate complex, deep emotions, like you're saying, right? That grief, that frustration, that deep, I mean, I like that drill to the core, like it really does feel like you're being gutted and you're
It
alone.
does. It
Yeah.
does. Because now as men, we're faced with different emotions that normally, we could just blow off, like the depression stage. We'll find something else to cope with. And it was something someone said to me, it actually was true. And as much as I hate that it's true, it is what it is. And that person said, when men go through things, we find other things to do. And it made me angry. I was going, and I stopped and I thought about it, and I came back and I told him, I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. Men do find other things to do, and which is usually making bad choices, suicides and things like that. So what can we do to change that? Right? Because we just don't come about and then one day we have the thoughts about it. It's usually a compilation of things that that are unaddressed
Yeah.
emotions, that deep core depression, the feeling of feeling like you're a failure and things like that. It's just a combination of those things that weighs on top of us. And as men, we try to figure out it on the fly, man. We really do, because it's it's unexplored territory.
Yeah. Well, I think what resonated with me in what you just said was, I was always the guy who, after that suicide attempt and after I got help, that's when fitness started to become a real big resonating part of my life. And that's when I just started going, right? Like, you just start running so that you don't have to feel deeper. So,
Right.
working 2 or 3 jobs, taking care of my younger siblings, helping out in volunteering, doing 1,000 different things so that my time and space is so filled up. And I remember talking to a therapist at the time and being like, I love being so busy that I don't have time to stop. And not realizing how unhealthy that is to say.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be so busy that I have to, I can't, whatever, I can't think, right?
Yeah.
But
That's normally how it goes, though. When we start grieving, we jump straight into a whole lot of things. Like you said, being busy, right? But we don't want to think about these things because what's going to come next is what was
yeah.
always my question. If I stop right now, and so I can relate to what you just said. When my son was younger, and I started my personal training company, he was supposed to take over the personal training company. I hadn't even thought about, saying, what if something happened to him or anything like that? I was preparing him for when I left this place. I'm going to teach you everything that I know about this personal training to make you a better personal trainer than me. And coming from a bodybuilding background, there was a whole lot of things that I had to learn, because I'm tall. I'm 6'4". So being a
Oh, wow.
6'4" bodybuilder, it's like, how do you, do all of these things,
Put on
finally
size.
figure out this
Yeah.
formula to yourself?
Yeah.
Because I've been trained around smaller bodybuilders, for quite some time, and I'm doing their work, and I'm going, this is not working. So I wanted to take that because my son was going to be taller than me. So that company was supposed to have been his. And when he passed away, I ended up just diving straight into, packing on as many clients as I possibly could, and just, it wasn't even about the money. It was about, I don't want to feel, I don't want to think, I don't want to have to, I don't want to have to do anything except for what I'm doing right now. This is what brings me joy. It's helping other people achieve their goals physically, and staying healthy. So it was, I can relate to that so much, man. Dive straight into it and just keep going. We eventually find out that there's a brick wall on the other end that says, hey, you need to slow down, right?
Yeah.
And then we have to recalculate all of these movements that we've made.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's why, fitness is so resonating with so many people, right? It's, I started prepping for my bodybuilding show right after, so my dad passed, and then 6 months later my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she was given 3 months to live. So after moving, after everything, the funeral's done, we're finally feeling like we're getting through it, and then we're hit with this brick, and that's when I, like we're saying, went into overdrive and started prepping for my bodybuilding show. I wanted to put on I was sitting at like 160, 170, and I wanted to put on some mass, and I'm 5'7". So um, it was like a nice 6 month bulk up to, I got up to 220, which was huge. I was like a
Okay.
roly poly oly. And, but I was that guy. I was working 3 jobs, bringing Tupperware everywhere. It's like we, especially men, and I can't speak to women, but I know for me and myself, and when I see in other men, it's like the more obsessive you can be about the details helps you detach from the noise.
Yes.
So if I'm so busy calculating macros and figuring out when I'm going to get my cardio in and when I'm going to get my workouts in and what my progressions look like, that takes time away from my brain thinking about how screwed I am or the situation I'm in.
Man,
Yeah.
you said it right there, man. How
Yeah.
screwed I am, and I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people really understand that. So, diving deep into the mind of a man when we're going through the grieving process, that's exactly what it's like. It's like on one end, we're distracting ourselves to keep us from realizing how far down the rabbit hole we've actually gone
Mm,
because we're not paying attention. It's like I have to keep moving. Everything that's in front of me, I have to power through it, and
yeah.
keep moving, keep moving, keep moving until again, like you said, it's like if you spend so much time calculating your food, how many meals you need to put in for a day, how much of a workout that you need to do, and how much intensity you need to add to that workout, that everything else we just neglect it, man. We just neglect it. And by the time, I don't know about you, but when I realized what was going on, I was sitting in front of a mirror and I'm looking at myself and I'm almost 300 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was almost 300 pounds and I was pushing myself because I wanted to be 315, 330, and then cut
Yeah.
my weight back down to 275. But here I am almost 300 pounds. And I realized that even though I had put on this mass, the damage, emotional damage that we had happened, had
Mm,
occurred, it eventually manifested itself. It eventually
yeah.
manifests itself. So now you take that and along with the personal training. Now I'm fighting between my passion and what I'm actually feeling. And it's like, no, I'm going to
Mm,
keep pushing myself. And my addiction was exactly that, lifting weights. I love
mm,
lifting heavy weights. And I remember one day I was training with a friend of mine, had my garage basement all set up. When he got done, I said, well, I'm not done right now. And I was being very devious with myself, right? So in my
mm,
mind I'm going to put on as much weight as I can and see if I can lift it. And if I don't lift it, the worst thing that can happen is that it crushes me. And so
wow.
I became devious in my own workouts, as intense as it was,
Mm,
and I just remember I'm sitting up there almost 300 pounds. I put over 500 pounds on a bar, got it up off the bar. And then when it got down on my chest, I was able to put it back up and I kept doing it till I couldn't do it anymore. Then I realized once it finally caved down on my chest, well, maybe this wasn't the best idea. And so it's a harsh
yeah.
reality in a spur of the moment. I ended up pushing it off on the side and pushing everything off. And I got up and I went, well, I don't think I'm going to do that again. I don't like the feel of that crushing me, right?
No. Well, I mean, it's so interesting because that's a whole new perspective for me. Like, it was never, I mean, I loved lifting heavy, don't get me wrong, but it was never
Yeah.
about, for me, it was kind of a different avenue of, with so much chaos, I can control how I look.
Mhm.
And for me, I mean, it was in the mirror, like sitting there post show. I was at, 3% body fat. I had just come in third place out of 60 guys on my first show, which qualifies you for a national show. And I was like
Right.
beyond upset that I came in third, and beyond upset that I wasn't lean. I didn't feel, everybody talks about, having issues with your body and how it looks, but in that kind of obsession, all of a sudden that body dysmorphia becomes a way of life, right? You're never lean
Mhm.
enough, you're never big enough. So let's
Yes.
say, Tony, you did hit that 315 you'd be like, screw it, let's go higher, because it's never enough, right? So and for me, it was like post show, I started to gain the weight back, and I started to look back at the pictures, and I was like, I was so mentally unhealthy to think, one, that was a healthy avenue, and two, to look at myself in the mirror at the time and say, you're not good enough. Because look at during my mom being sick, during her transition to hospice, while taking care of 2 younger siblings, while going to junior college, while working 2 jobs, I still was able to show up for the show. And I had a surgery, which my coach was so pissed about, 4 weeks before, for my tonsils to be removed. So I couldn't eat for a few days. So it was like all these things piled up, and all I saw was failure. And looking back, like, the lessons that I gained from that experience are just huge. And it's seeing that failure as not failure, but like perseverance and determination, and giving yourself some slack. I think a lot of people don't give themselves slack. Like, allow yourself to feel and be okay with, like, I'm not okay right now, and I'm coping with food. I'm coping with whatever your mechanism is. Be aware of it. You don't necessarily have to stop right away, but being aware of it is that first step.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to become aware of what I was doing. And I think a lot of mine was anger. I was angry at the world. I was angry at everything, right? And here I am. I have this personal training company. I dove into it, and then on the backside of it, because I hadn't made up my mind yet of whether or not I wanted to live. I knew I was leaning towards not wanting to live. So doing that was my way of being aggressive with me. It was my way of saying, if I die under the weights, at least I died doing what I enjoyed doing, which was lifting weights, sculpting my body. So it's the aggression level, and I just became stronger, and I started building myself. So then after a while, after that moment, I was like, okay, I don't like that feeling. I don't like the feeling of being crushed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tone this down a little bit, and I'm going to focus on just keeping physically healthy, right? Because there's another side to that as well. Now, I wanted to stay physically healthy because I felt as if the enemy had waged war on me. And in order for me to have a fighting chance in this battle with him, in the spiritual battle, I felt that I needed to be physically stronger than anyone that, than anything that ever came across me. I wanted to go in and crush him, which I realized after a period of time, that wasn't the way to go. I'm in a spiritual battle. Why am I trying to fight it physically? Right. So
you did what you knew, right?
Yeah,
like that was all you knew. Yeah.
Right. It's like, hey, we're going to hit this thing head on. It's just going to be me and this person. And he picked the battle. So, what I'm saying? So therefore, if you want me, here I come. And I didn't realize, how, like you just said, how unhealthy that was. Here I am eating 12 to 14 meals out of the day. I'm working out like a freaking beast, and I'm just in this headset, this mindset of I will not be destroyed. I will not let this life beat me the way that it is right now. Like, I'm going to show. It was my way of saying, I'm going to show you. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna do this. But as we all find out later on during that journey, my life went like this. It went totally to the left. It took me on a different journey, and it taught me how to respect myself. It taught me that it was okay not to be okay. I had to start being patient with myself, just like most men do. We have to teach ourselves these days. There's nobody out there saying, hey, you need to be patient with yourself. Most people are saying, hey, are you okay? You seem pretty down today. No one's really checking on us. So figuring that out along the way, and like you said, having those tools come about.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I'm watching my grandfather lose my father, right? Like, it's not something that a parent should ever have to do. So I can imagine the feeling of rage and anger and confusion and just yeah, I mean, I just almost like struck by a train. Um, I can't imagine how life altering that must have been. Because, everybody at some point will have to lose their parent, and not saying that, my situation was fair at all, but the reverse is just socially unacceptable, and not something that you see in our current kind of paradigm of life. So I can't imagine, the feelings that were coming up, and especially using something so tangible as weightlifting, or even business, like driving yourself into your business and
Right.
staying busy in that way. It just um yeah, it's just that feeling of never being enough can come up, I'm sure.
It does. But honestly, man, I never take anything away from anyone. And I've
Mm,
started to understand as I've gone through it, people lose children all the time, right? It's not just me. I've met people who have lost multiple children. And so who am I to be selfish in my loss when they are experiencing theirs? And yes, I'm going to perceive
mm,
mine as different. We all will be, just like any loss. And as we talked about before, it's the relationship that you have with the person that you lost. I've met people who's never had a relationship with any of their parents, and when they leave, they feel absolutely nothing, right? And
yeah,
I've met people
yeah,
who have better relationships with their mothers or their fathers. And so, of course, when it comes down to siblings, you all going to have a different perception of that relationship that you have with them. So it's a matter of being mindful and respecting that, hey, you know what you feel is validated. Is really
yeah,
validated. And so
yeah.
when I think about child loss and things like that, I have to look at the blessing that came along with it. Far as I had something that most people don't have, right? I
Mm,
had the chance to have a child. I had the chance to be a father. I had the chance to be a really good father, right? Unfortunately,
mm,
I didn't get the chance to see him grow up, but it makes me have gratitude for the moments that I did have. Just like my mother. My mother was my first love, as any man, right? And so when we lose,
mm,
our world falls apart. But the beautiful part about it is, I had a mother. I
yeah,
had someone who cared about me and taught me these things as a child. And she did the best that she could with what she had to work with, and so therefore I was pretty blessed. So for every tragic moment that you have, there are blessings if we choose to seek out those blessings, right, and do something
yeah.
positive with it. Just like yourself, you begin to use yours to help others feel good about themselves, and that's commendable.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about my sister often, and she was 15 when both my parents were gone. She was 12 when my dad passed. Like, uh, the appreciation I have for, kind of like you're saying, the time, that the extra years that you have with someone.
Right.
Um, because I mean, that's a new perspective for me too, to think, being this 15-year-old girl who doesn't have parents, it's just so devastating.
Yes.
Um, So, looking at the bright side of things I think, is often the last step of, from what I've seen in me and friends like that, positive end seems to be the light at the end of the tunnel, where that you're starting to work through things. If you're starting to be able to see the positive
Yeah.
lights in the storm. Um, yeah, yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's a hell of a storm, ain't it? And that's
A
exactly what it
lifelong
is, man.
storm, though. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
people tend to, I think, stow it away and think that, oh, it's just, I've gone through it, I've worked through it, and even I've subjected myself to this thought process, like, oh, I've dealt with it, I'm good. And
yeah,
then you start, my dad passed away May 28th, so like it's 27 days from his anniversary, and it's just so weird to think, this will be 11 years without him. And it's not that it gets easier with time, and I know that's the kind of the big, people say that, but it just, it becomes more sporadic. The depth becomes more sporadic.
yes,
So you'll feel into something or have something hit you, and all of a sudden you're right back into that deep stage of grief, and then you'll go about your day and it'll kind of slowly dissipate. So, um thinking that you need to get fixed or that you need to get over something,
Yeah.
I think is a misnomer. Yeah.
Well, people need to realize that it's not, we're not machines.
Mm.
It's not something that needs to be fixed. It's parts of you that need to be healed.
Mm.
And you have to, you gotta stop looking at yourself as a machine. And anyone that's out there listening right now, you have to stop looking at yourself like a machine. It's not like you can go in and take out the broken parts. You know what I'm saying? These are part of you, man. These are part of you.
Yeah.
These emotions. And as men, it's so hard. And I'm saying these words with sincerity. You have to go in and nurture yourself. You have to know how to
Mm.
nurture your emotions. You have to know how to have patience with yourself. But no, most of all, have grace with yourself. Know how to move. Know when to slow down. Know when to pay attention, and know when to, just be in the moment with what you're going through, and not be afraid to reach out for help. Not be afraid to say that I'm not okay. These are things that I had to learn, right? Because the
Yeah.
masculinity, and I had to learn a lot about masculinity and toxic masculinity and how it does affect ourselves, right? How do we perceive these things? And I realized for a long time after these turbo mishaps, right? They're
Mm.
not tragedies anymore. They're mishaps because I can't
Mm.
change them. And what
Yeah.
has happened, um, I have to eventually start to accept this. It's a mishap. My mother had a stroke. My son died unexpectedly. My father died from cognitive heart failure. My brother died from an asthma attack, and so forth and so forth. And so I have to look at life totally different. So my perception is that, was it their time to
Mm.
go?
Yeah.
There's no foul play here. I can accept that it was there's just their time to go, and their time
Mm.
with me, I can cherish a little bit more. I have gratitude, because I can remember those conversations. I can remember the feeling, what it was like to hold my son when he was a baby on my chest, and to
Mm.
watch him, boost him up in the tree because he wanted to climb it, or put him in a swing and swing him. But also, I remember
Mm.
what it was like for him, you know, um, going through the things that he went through. So I'm looking at all of these things, and my perception about life has made more sense, so to speak.
Mm.
Even through all of that, it just made more sense to me, and it put me in a place of, I get it now. We're not meant to live
Mm.
forever, and tomorrow's not promised to neither one of us. And no matter how old you are, death does not discriminate.
Mm.
As much as we want to believe these things, um, has some sort of pattern to it, some sort of schedule. I'm supposed to die. My son's supposed to take over, right? No, it
Yeah.
doesn't happen that
Yeah.
way. It's never happened that way, and I refuse to lie to myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. It's something I'm still battling with is I'm very heady in my own head and um tend to forget about the nature of the universe. I mean, matter is never destroyed, right? Just the fundamental principles. Matter is
Right.
never
Yes.
destroyed. It's recycled. It's so, somebody said something to me recently, and it was he's a healthcare worker. He was telling me about when people tend to view themselves as objects, they tend to actually hold more in their muscle, and they tend to be like flatter. And I'm, my head, I'm like, oh, glycogen, muscle. I'm thinking
Right.
in the fitness
Right.
term,
First,
and so I
first
start asking,
thought.
yeah, that's my first thought. And he's like, no, it's deeper than that. If you are thinking you're an object, you're gonna be like you're an object. Then you've
Mm,
objectified yourself. Your body is just a piece of you. Whereas if you see yourself as a living human, you tend to be fuller because you're giving yourself that expression of life. I don't know how true that is in terms of like the body. Like, can they really actually feel fuller if they're thinking of themselves as one big organism? But what I got from that is we are so all connected and so just one big breath in the world, right? We're all one
right.
big movement in this world, and we all need to work together. Because so often, especially with grief, we feel alone, we isolate ourselves, we don't reach out because we don't want to be that person.
Right.
And we stop committing to the universal collective of us bringing ourselves together. Um, and I think there's beauty in realizing that, like, we are together, we grow together, we live together, we die together, and that just recycles. So, not necessarily are you unimportant or small in the universe and grand scheme of things, because we can have such a big impact by creating this collective.
Right. Yes.
But then also seeing that, like you said, when it's your time, when you're being called for, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, God, source, the higher power
Right.
has this plan of how we all are going to kind of live out our lives, and just subscribing to the fact that we are interconnected, interweaved, and we will never understand some things, and that's totally okay.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think the community aspect and the togetherness aspect, and kind of like you were saying, is just such a pivotal piece right now for me in my journey, which I'm, 7 years after my mom, 11 years after my dad, and I'm still learning, right? I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I'm still processing. And I think, I'm almost excited to see what other insights it's gonna give me throughout my journey.
Yes.
Do I wish they were here every single day? But I'm going to utilize every positive that this gives me, because if not, it's just a waste. And letting them live on too. I think a big thing that, I talked to my partner about, and she still has both of her parents. It's like keeping the memories alive. It's so painful at the beginning, but kind of like you're talking about, like holding your child, it's a memory that you want to relive, it's a memory you want to remember. And so often we kind of shove those aside and say it's more hurtful to remember them than it is positive, and then
Right.
our subconscious can stow them, and it's just could be gone. But learning to embrace those, and that's why I appreciate you giving space for people to tell their story and release it and bring power to those people who've left us, because this in itself is a form of remembering and building and allowing for those feelings to work through you. So, get my advice to people would be like, get used to uncomfortable, get used to having these conversations, like raise your hand, say I'm not okay, and then get used to diving deep, because it's not until you dive deep and like really tell someone what you're feeling that you realize if they're a good support, and you realize what you truly need just by talking about it.
Yes.
And I mean, for me, it's gone the whole down the rabbit hole, because now I'm known, but as my friends call me, like the depressing jokester, because I make these jokes about things, and humor is kind of my avenue of releasing things. But to get to a point where I can joke about these things or have laughing conversations about these things, it feels good. It feels like, I'm able to kind of detach the negative emotion from the experience and really kind of feel into where they are, where I am, and the symbiosis of the whole thing.
Yeah. Now you being a personal trainer, I know we talked
Mm,
about this before. We have a lot of similarities when it comes to that, taking the aspects of personal training to actually help with the grieving process as well. Once we get
mm,
past all the aggressive, well, for me, once I got past all the aggressiveness and
mm.
toned myself down a little bit, it was like, okay, this still makes me feel good. Maybe I need to change my perspective of how I'm using it, and maybe use it as a tool to get healthier. Not physically,
Yeah.
not just physically, but mentally. It became my therapy, right? So I
Yeah.
had a routine with that. Now, did you find yourself doing that as well? And if so, what were some of the things? What were some of the things that you did do once you figured out that it was like your therapy and your healing?
Yeah. I mean, I've never been really huge into meditation, but to me, this was like a moving meditation, right? You
Mhm.
focus, because meditating, a lot of people think meditating is like pushing away thoughts and just clearing your mind, but meditating is literally just focusing. So working out allowed me to just kind of focus on connecting to, if I'm doing bicep curls, focusing on connecting to my bicep, focusing on being in my body and giving myself that 45 minutes, hour to really connect with myself, work on my breath, and push myself. And then obviously all the good benefits that come with it, with hormone release and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I went through a big, evolution of unhealthy, right? Kind of like you're saying, where I was doing it for 2+ hours a day. And it was all I was thinking about, to screw this. I'm not working out anymore. It's not, good for me for some, I guess good for me in air quotes. And then to where I am now, where it's like, I just want to feel good in my body. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel athletic. And I want to be able to give myself that investment of every day getting in. It's not necessarily just weightlifting. I'm subscribed to a very holistic sense of working out and training your body. I think flexibility is huge. I think the stiffer we get, the more likely we are to get sick. And then on top of that, seeing the correlation between, like, my father, who never worked out, he played ice hockey here and there, but like was not physically active, wasn't conscious on what he was eating. And I can't imagine that helped for cancer, right? Like, that might not have been the reason he got it, but it's definitely not going to help if you're not taking care of yourself.
That's very true.
So, I see it as a necessary additive to people's lives in a way that's healthy and sustainable. I with my clients, I preach, the best plan you're gonna do is the one that you're gonna stick to, right? Like, there's no need. I just got off the phone this morning with a guy who was like, I want to be 185, I want to be 8% body fat, I want to be, and I'm like, okay, well, let's take a step back. What's the goal here? What's the bigger overarching goal? Do you just want to look good shirtless? Is it a confidence thing? Is it an emotional thing? Like, let's look at why we want these goals and aspirations and really understand your why. And I think that's what it comes down to, is like a greater understanding to me and myself. And I want to share that with other people, because you can learn so much from, feeling unconfident. Everybody has the same kind of flow, right? You walk into the gym for the first time, and it's not like a very happy place to be for someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So they feel like overwhelmed, unconfident. I'll just stick to the cardio. I'll just, do my thing. And then building that confidence and knowing that you don't have to do everything perfect today, because you're going to come back tomorrow and do the similar stuff, right? Like, it's not about perfection. It's about progression. And that's with anything in life. So I think it's a universal.
It's a universal term.
Yeah, exactly.
Universal.
Yeah.
I can relate to that right there, because I had been working out. I think my first ever weight set I had, I was a kid. And I had the cement weights, right? And someone gave it to me, and I ended up taking it home. My mom was like, "What are you doing now?" I was like, "I'm working out." And so I take it upstairs to my room. I had a makeshift arm bar. I didn't know nothing of what I was doing. Now, you got to remember, I was so skinny, right, that I used to watch things and go, I want to have a chest like that. So I would go and read books of how people got their chest. Oh, you got to do plenty of push-ups. So when I was a kid, I used to steal bodybuilding magazines, and I used to watch these guys, these muscle builders, right? And at an early age, I was an artist. So I loved drawing. And so that was my style of drawing. I love comic books. And I tell myself, I wonder if I could look like that one day. And I'm looking at myself, and I got legs that skinny. I got arms that skinny, rib cage. And people used to always tell me, look at Screen Bean Tony. He can go hide behind a light pole and you'll never see him except for his big old feet, And so, over time, I'm just like, I'm going to do all of these push-ups. I'm going to see if I can do this. And that was at a very early age. And when I got older, now I laugh at myself, because I'm like, wow, this whole time, right? And so now I'm to a point to where I love feeling good. I love looking good. It is part of my therapy, because I love the feeling of lifting weights. I'm no longer trying to kill myself. I'm no longer trying to be 300 pounds anymore. I'm good at just about feeling good about myself. I'm good. I love the way my muscles feel when I'm done. I love the release of the endorphins and things like that. And the people that I do train, I incorporate my grief knowledge in with that personal training as well.
Mm.
Helping others understand how grief needs to move through your body. You need to move it through, right? And so maybe you're like me. Maybe you're not a dancer. I have no
Mm.
rhythm at all. You put me on a dance floor, someone's bound to get hurt. So being a personal trainer and lifting weights was my way of keeping everybody safe from me looking like a broke down scarecrow on the dance floor. Ain't nobody got time for all that. No one has time for all of that, right?
Oh
But
my gosh.
it was a great way. It's a great way for me to still serve on top of
Mm.
everything else that I do as well. You know, running the nonprofit for men and things like that. It's like, okay, when I started thinking about it, I said, well, what are the 4 ways that we need to stay healthy and need to focus on? What we need to focus on our physical health. As men, we need to focus
Mhm.
on our mental health. We need to focus on our spiritual health, and we also need to focus on our emotional health, right?
Mm.
So, what are the best ways to get men to focus on these things? Well, personal training.
Mm.
Perfect. It
Yeah.
was it was just so perfect that I couldn't deny it. And I was like, all of this time, you could have just put out a blueprint and helped me do this instead of making me go this way and give up this and develop this and then being able to. And I was like, oh man, God, if I told anybody how this went, I could have easily just made a shortcut and we're like, let's combine them to both.
Well, it's amazing how, and I find this all the time, more so recently, but it's like we create things for us, right? Like
Right,
you were
right,
creating this because it was something you wanted, something you needed. I, created this program during COVID. I really stepped into it pretty heavily and noticed like people were, gyms were closed down. All of a sudden, it amplifies people's excuse not to work out, right? And
right.
they get depressed and anxious, and we don't have that avenue. We can't go outside. We can't. So, seeing how that deteriorated mental health and how I was feeling, like the gyms were closed. I was so upset. I was like, I'm depressed. I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm, overworking myself, and I feel like crap. And so we make these things for us. And then the fact that you can get to that blueprint, I think, is falling in love with the journey is almost as important as falling in
Mm,
love with the result. So you had to go through X, Y, and Z to figure this out. And it wouldn't mean the same to you, I bet, if someone had just given you the blueprint and told you, just do this, Tony, just do this. But for you to actually have to get there was creating the importance of your mind of how impactful this can be, right?
right.
And look at it now. I mean, look at all that is impacted. It's beautiful to know that you can go to sleep every single night and know that at least one person around the world is impacted by your story or by what you're doing.
Right.
It's inspiring.
Well, yeah, and just like most of us that get into this line of work, that's exactly what we think, right? That's what we want. Only if we can reach one person, just one. I've
Yeah.
done a pretty good job, um, and for me, reaching one person was good enough for that moment. But then I
Hmm.
thought to myself, I want to reach more. I want to do so much more. So I started thinking at it in a bigger, vision. And so everything I've ever done since that time was to create that vision, create opportunities for people to come and find a place to heal, especially for
Hmm.
men, but also, not neglecting the children or the women, but being able to have those resources available so they can also be a part of that. I know what it's like to be alone. I know what it's like to have to go through this. And sometimes you have to look at everything from the perspective, from a larger perspective and go, you know what? What if I can provide something to where I don't have to turn anyone away, men, women, or child?
Hmm.
What if I can give something that would provide not just different definitions of what you're going through, but also be around people that understand, that actually care about what you're going through, and are willing to come back and step with you from where you are and not
Mm,
expect you to be where we at, right? Because where
yeah.
we're at right now, it's a long road. It's definitely a long road. And so to expect someone to be on that same level, it's setting that person up for failure. You're setting yourself up for heartbreak, and a whole lot of anger when things don't go the right way. So seeing something like that, yeah, I will always choose to do the right thing. I will always choose to do bigger and do better because I understand the
Mm,
business and the people that I reach. Reaching one person, yes, I've already done that. Let's check that off. Reaching two
mm,
people, check that off. What else am I capable of giving? And who else out there will be willing to accept my gift and the tools that come along with it and be able to use that and better themselves? But better than that, now if they was to take that, maybe I
mm.
missed someone, maybe someone didn't need to come see me, but that one person that I helped can take those tools and help them. Isn't that the best feeling in the world? To take personal training, help people stay healthy, help people understand, the benefits of taking care of your body mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. These things all tie together. It's a way that we can move these things through ourselves, but also, like you said, connect, build a bigger, better community of like-minded individuals that are dead set on helping the next person get up to their platform, in a healthier way. And I think that's my goal. That's always been my goal since this
Yeah, I
thing.
mean it's the beautiful part of like amplifying your message,
Right.
I'm sure someone's going to take what they've learned from you and figure out how to do it for themselves and then help, you know,
Hmm.
tons of people based off what they've learned. And um that indirect impact is massive, right? That's to know that you're sleeping and somebody's, using what you taught them and helping other people. It's amazing. And that's what we're doing, right? Like we were
Right.
taught
Right.
this by somebody else, and we have so many influences in our daily lives that are pushing us to say one more thing, or pivot and say this in this frame instead of that in this way, and learning to articulate that to someone else and then them use it. It's like handing off tools and just the full recycling of everything. I mean, even hearing
Hmm.
from clients different perspectives and different um struggles that they may be in and how what helped them. It's like now they've given me a tool that I can use for somebody else in that
Right.
scenario,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that two-way street is very cool to see as well.
Now you mentioned, we talked about this before. You have a program. You have a program that you've developed, correct? And
Yeah, so
yeah,
yeah.
let's talk about the program and what it entails in your program, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, I mean, like I said, during COVID, I've been in the fitness industry since 2012-ish, with supplements and training, and but I was kind of pre-med and getting into the medical field, and then I realized, like with COVID, the shutdown of the gyms and all of
Mhm.
it was a lot of the noise from the fitness industry that was starting to bother me, and that pressure to make people feel less than because they're not taking this supplement or they're not working out in this way. And so for me, I've always labeled myself as like longevity, and understanding your body over getting the six-pack abs real quick. That's not the goal, and nor should it be the goal. The goal is to learn about you as an individual, and how you best um, accept foods, accept workouts, how your body recovers, how to be the best version of Tony or Zach possible. Because I'm not like you, you're not like me, and that's what I always tell my clients is, we're gonna have to start moving in a certain direction and then see how your body reacts. But I've been fortunate enough to do everything I do is online, so I don't actually train in person with anyone anymore. I have my own app. I set people up on diets and workouts, and then it's pretty much there's a couple different layers of it. It's right. It's the fitness, the nutrition, the accountability, which is huge, and then the mindset. And that comes with weekly, 30-45 minute conversations where we're breaking down questions that you may have, paradigms that you've created around the gym, understanding why something works a certain way for someone but not necessarily for you. And just my goal is kind of in line with what you're saying, right? Give somebody the tools, the education, the knowledge, so that they don't necessarily need to keep hiring people, right? That they can find a good flow. And it's not a great business model because you're actively telling people like, hey, go, let's figure it out. And then you go implement it and do it until you have an issue. And then we can have a conversation again. But I'd rather empower people though all day than have some sort of a cookie cutter. A lot of people will give cookie cutter, be very hard to communicate with. I want to give as much value as possible because I believe so much in the fact the more you give, the more you get. So if I am the best trainer for my clients, they're going to get so much more from that. And in return, recommend me, whatever it may be. But I've been very lucky to I'm working with around 20 people right now. And it's been a real blessing. I mean, it's a lot of work and there's parts of it that I do enjoy and parts of it that are tough, but I'll tell you, it pushes me to learn every single day. I've read, 6 books already this year. Like I'm really trying to dive deep and learn as much as I can so I can be the best equipped, right, to answer these questions and destroy the negative self-talk and negative paradigm around the fitness industry and the gym culture that I feel like has been, you talk about that toxic masculinity. And I definitely, I think we're starting to move away from it, but it's very highly amplified in these gyms and in these situations. And I've had multiple clients who just didn't have the confidence, and like giving them what they need so they can walk in confident, knowing exactly what they need to do. And then watching them progress has been incredible. And as you know, and you can't really like tell people this, but it translates into their lives, right? So I've seen clients have left marriages that were toxic. I've had a client switch jobs 3 times since working with him, and he's in, making a ton more money than he was before. And it's just building that confidence and that drive in yourself and knowing that you are so worthy of everything that you can get your hands on, really. Like it's just, So, I mean, I think my Instagram's up there. If people want to chat, I'm always open to just.
Do you have a website where people can come check out your programs and get signed up there? I'm gonna throw a banner across the bottom. So if someone wants to get in contact with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, I just threw it on the private chat. It's free to book a call. I love just having conversations with people, learning about where they are and giving them actionable items to kind of help. But it should be ferberfitness.com.
Okay. I'm going to put that up at the bottom. So anybody who's listening right now, this man is full of knowledge. And,
appreciate that.
Reach out to him, if he knows a thing about a thing or two now. When it comes down to this personal training thing. So if you guys are looking to get physically fit, you got to remember this man has walked this path, and his passion came from exactly that. Was walking the path and being able to implement the things that he's gone through to help others. And I think that's just a beautiful thing when you have someone who's experienced and actually care about, what you're doing in your life, understand the importance of staying healthy in all of those many areas and taking the time to do it. It's your passion and everything. And that's
more. I appreciate all. I mean, more than that too, though, if anybody's just looking to talk or like you said, they need that extra, the hand up, right? Like if this is your way of feeling comfortable having a conversation, I'm always open to just talking out grief, talking out depression, talking out. I mean, these are symptoms to a greater feeling. So don't feel like, to reach out to, and I'm sure you say the same thing, Tony. It's like, you're here as a resource. I wish I utilized more resources when I was younger, because it's just the knowledge, the tools, the connections you can build are just massive.
Now you do work in grief as well, right? We haven't even touched on that part just yet, have we?
No, I'm in the process. getting together men groups out here in San Diego. So if anybody's in San Diego and wants to, grab lunch or hang out at some point, I've been in the process of building a men's group, and it's interesting. Like growing up, we were very conservative on thoughts, and my parents were East Coasters, and so when I moved out to San Diego, everybody's doing breath work and all these,
Right.
as my dad would say, like woo woo things. They're tools, right? It's all tools. It's all
Right.
getting deeper to know yourself. So it's been such a cool process to learn and see more. So my hope in these groups are that we can learn from each other, pick up different tools. Something that I've never heard of could be, what somebody else is doing daily. And all it takes is just hearing that they're doing it for me to institute it. And all of a sudden my life has changed. Like it could be that simple. So, learning to talk to people around you, hear what other people in the community are doing is massive. So if anybody's in San Diego, definitely reach out.
Let's see, I wish I was in San Diego because I would come down there just to enjoy. I mean, when it comes down to men's groups, man, I'm all about it. As long as it's providing positivity and helping men heal and understand and things like that, I'm all about that. Let me go check it out, because I'm just like you. I want to learn, and there's so much more to learn about that. And then, when it's right up my alley. It's definitely right up my alley. So when it comes down to that, I'm like, hey, I love the fact that you're doing that with the men. And what now, say for instance, if they get a contact with you and want to be a part of your men's group, what are some of the things that that they can expect? What are some of the things that man can expect being a part of your group?
It's a good question. I mean, I really, the idea, right, is kind of like what we've been talking about. It's something that I wish I had. And that's kind of why I've started to construct it. It's like, it's a safe space for men to come and talk. And I think I told you this, I've always been I've been the more of emotional man, right, growing up, and that was looked down on, to be emotional and be sensitive. And I'm learning more and more now how important it is to be emotional and be sensitive and to be open and communicative. And so this space is a safe space to do just that, to talk about relationship issues, anxieties, depression, grief, wins, just anything and everything. And my thought was to have different guest speakers. So we started off with my friend who is a breathwork practitioner, and kind of going through is very interesting to me to learn about different breathing techniques are actually associated with different. So if you have anxiety, there's actually a prescriptive breathing technique that you can do to slowly relieve that anxiety. So you can actually prescribe different breaths for different feelings, which was mind blowing to me. But the idea is to bring somebody in to speak at the beginning to build some knowledge and build kind of a new paradigm or a new shift in what people know. And then kind of from there go into going around and introducing and having just a genuine conversation. I haven't had many genuine, deep conversations with men that have felt real until recently. So it's been very, very nice to just be open and judgment-free zone. I mean, people say that all the time, and I've always thought, okay, that's kind of whatever. But really, to know that people around you just want to support you and never to judge you is an amazing feeling.
That's very true. Now, what is the name? Do you have a name for your men's group just yet?
Nope.
No.
So very, very grassroots. Yeah, it's just kind of so far it's just people getting together. Yeah. And I that's kind of my goal, is to let it be organic and let it kind of grow as it will and see what that means. I mean, I don't know. I know there's a couple out here that are really, really cool, but I just want to give people that. Again, it's just as much for me as it is for other people. I want people to have that safe space, and I want to cultivate a community of people who are conscious and growing and always developing. And they say you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So why not try to be around 5 people that inspire you?
Exactly. I do love that. And as we start to wrap up, is there any encouraging words that you would have for someone out there? And if so, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's right in line with what we had talked about before, right? With being soft on yourself, right? Understanding that if you're going through something, if you're feeling something, you should give yourself the space to feel it, to allow yourself to really work through it and not be frustrated and not have a certain, like, that's part of the reason I'm not a big fan of a lot of grief. They give you these steps and these feelings that you're supposed to feel,
Right,
and then
right.
and it's like you are gonna have a very unique experience, and just allow that to unfold and be open to feeling and loving yourself, and uh on top of that, reaching out, because you're not alone. That's the biggest thing that people should know is you're really not alone, right? You have, there's 9 billion people in this world, or whatever that we're up to now. Like, you have people who love and care about you, even if it's hard for you to see that. So I don't even know you, and I'll tell you, I love you, I care about you, you're part of the human race, you're part of our community, and so it's important for you have to engage, and that's the hardest thing, is taking that first step. But I promise you, once you do, it's all going to fall into place. It's all going to be, you're going to be connected with the right people. Things are going to start to get easier. You're still going to feel less alone, less isolated, which is always the goal.
And Ada just left you a comment. She says, "Acknowledge the emotions."
I love
And I
that.
think that
Yeah.
is just so true. If anybody has any other questions or comments or everything, go ahead, post them up there. And before we get off, I would like to answer those questions, and so you guys can get to know more about Zach as well. Yeah, but other than that, man, it's I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming on this live global conference, grief conference, that we have to share your story and your journey into becoming a personal trainer and understanding your emotions and sharing that with us, man. Thank you so very much.
Yeah. I can't thank you enough again for creating this space, and allowing people to really learn and grow and develop together. And um, yeah, I just, like I said,
And give these people engage with them. That's what they want. They want you to engage with them. They want you to soak up that knowledge and use it in your grief journey. So don't be afraid to comment on them, ask them questions, because there's no such thing as a dumb question, and we are here for you. And this is just the beginning. If you like things like this is just the beginning. It's going to take us a while to do the next one, but the next one we're going to be doing the same thing. And again, we're going to have more people. We're going to have more workshops that you can enjoy, more things that the family can come and be a part of to start that healing journey. So please, if you guys are tuning in on this, get in contact with Zach. Check out his page, and if you're looking to lose weight, or just all around trying to feel better, contact him. And I promise you won't be disappointed. Like we touch so much on so many other things, but as a personal trainer, we kind of keep some things to ourselves, right? We have a little secrets that we don't tell nobody. So come and enjoy him, man. His personality, he's a wonderful, wonderful human being, and yeah, enjoy him. Please enjoy him. And Zach, I want to say thank you again, brother, for coming on here, sharing your story, and just being present with me today. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Again, thank you for having me, and please don't hesitate to reach out. Anyone, if I can do anything to help, even if it's just a conversation, I'm always here. And Tony, I'm sure we'll be talking again real soon.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna be staying in contact shortly after the conference is over, because I have questions. I want to do some things with you. I think that we can do some really wonderful things.
That would be awesome. Well, everybody, stay tuned. I'm sure there's some amazing things coming up, and again, I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you, brother. You enjoy the rest of your day, and many
You
blessings
as
to you.
well. Thanks so much.